a wellness table supported by a bunch of legs. And we decided that the first and most important leg that's supporting this table of ours is exercise. First and most important thing that we can get all of our friends doing is getting them active, getting them out of breath, getting them sweating, getting them working out. Okay, so what's number 2? What's the second leg? Any guesses? And all the rest, I think, are equally important, and depending on the person with whom you speak, which expert you're talking to. But so the next few, I think, are just kind of, yes, this is also one of the important legs. The one we're going to play with today and Wednesday is probably the most well-known of these that we will play with in here. In other words, as a matter of fact, some of us in here might be studying where it has to do with the food and nutrition part. And some of us might already be studying. How many in here are minoring in nutrition? You have a few of you. So we have some experts. We'll let you include your thoughts into our discussions. When I was 19, 20, I got really fat. I was a huge boy. Prior to that time, and I told you about this, I think, didn't I? That prior to that time, I was very, very active. I'd been playing sports all my life, and you know, every season, every sport, I was active. And the idea that food was something I had to worry about wasn't an issue. I remember my little brother was a trail guide down in St. George. He worked at a place called Green Valley, and he'd take these really, really rich, overweight people on hikes around the desert, you know, beautiful places down there in St. George. And he would tell me, you know, I can't eat enough. He would eat about 6,000 calories a day. You know, candy bars all day long. Nothing. He didn't gain any weight at all. He didn't have any health problems because he was burning it as fast as he was eating it. Well, I got to a situation where I was no longer burning it as fast as I was eating it, and so I got fat. And this was a weird thing for me. I remember on one occasion I was playing basketball, and I hadn't played in quite a while, and some guys took a picture of me, and there's my gut sticking. I went up for a rebound, and there's this big fat gut sticking out. And I remember somebody else took a picture of me, and I got like 6 chins. It was just the most disgusting time of my life as far as my health was concerned. I was doing great things, but I was very inactive. And it occurred to me sometime in that largesse that it had something to do with my food that I was eating. That I was eating so much. I mean, it was mostly Mexican food that we were eating all the time, and I love Mexican food. It's so yummy. And so I would eat it and eat it and eat it and get more and more large. And so I started, and this was really 30 years ago when I started studying nutrition. This was kind of my start into wellness, was studying nutrition. I came upon a book that was written by a guy by the name of Dr. David Rubin called Everything You Wanted to Know About Nutrition. It was a little green paperback book, and I'll never forget this. I still have this book. And it was just like question and answers. Question and answer, like, you know, what's in butter and what's in margarine? Should I eat margarine or butter? You know, and it was so fascinating. It was just straight, no science, you know, about the chemical makeup or anything like that. And didn't have anything like that. It was just straightforward. Here are some things that you should know about nutrition. And so I'd absorbed this book. I just loved this book. But it opened up a whole new, what's the right word? A whole new door that I had never stepped into before to do with my health, primarily the nutrition part. And so ever since then, nutrition has just been one of those kind of like hobbies that I've played with. I keep studying, and I always get email, and I read books. I've taught full semester classes on nutrition, kind of the equivalent of our 10-20 course. I have loved learning about nutrition. They say, you know, what's the word that they say? You are what you eat. I don't believe that, but I think that to a large extent, what we are does, I mean, it does combine to become the physiology that we are. I think we are what we think, but that's for a different day. So, let's start with a question. So how many in here have at some point in their lives, in your life, done something that is designed where you've modified what you're eating with the purpose of either gaining or losing weight? How many have done it for the purpose of losing weight? So quite a few of us. Has anyone in here modified their diet for the purpose of gaining weight? So a few of us. Research on diets show that if you start a diet on August 1st, 2011, on August 1st, 2012, what's the change?
You gained weight.
Gained 5 pounds. The research says across the board, all of the diets looked at, you know, as far as their success, a year later, you've gained 5 pounds. What does that tell us immediately about diets?
They don't work.
But we all keep going to diets. I mean, really, every single time I go to the store, I mentioned this in one of my other classes, every time you go to the store, in like Smith's or Walmart or wherever, and you go through the aisle and there's the magazines, have you once not seen a new diet on the magazines? Lose 30 pounds in 30 days. My favorite one of all time, of all those diets, was the celery diet. Have you seen the celery diet? You actually burn more calories eating celery than there are calories in celery. So, there you go. There's your weight loss program. Just eating it wins the race. No, diets don't work. And there's plenty of, in the 30 years that I have been studying it, it continues to be that way, that everybody who goes on these diets, 2 years later, I mean, some of them work powerfully, really quickly. These protein diets, or this horrible HCG diet that so many people aren't, which I think is horrible. I never recommend that. As a matter of fact, everybody who I've known who has done that, not only when they stop it, they start gaining weight more quickly, but everyone I've known who has done that has had severe, or at least some kind of health problems as a result. Cervical cancer, I know 2 people who have had cervical cancer from it. I know one person who had pancreatic cancer, she's in her 2nd round of chemotherapy. Really, if your friends are on that thing, get them off. There's no good evidence to show that that is a healthy diet. And we keep seeing more and more, it's anecdotal still, but we keep seeing more and more people who are having problems with that one. Now, there are some diets out there that are, you know, Weight Watchers, pretty good, you know, as far as if you're comparing them. But still, the problem is the idea that you're having to worry about food to control your weight. And as we'll talk about later on, if you're thinking about food and your weight, then you're going to be eating more food and gaining weight. It's just law of attraction stuff. It's just what you focus on is what you're going to get. And if all day long all you can think about is what can I eat, you're going to find yourself wanting to eat. So we need to back off a little and get a little bit less worrisome about, you know, the extra 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 pounds on our bodies, and be a lot more concerned about how open are our blood vessels and how well are we, you know, what's our returning to heart rate, resting heart rate, and all of those kinds of things. So you know, we all are going to have a little extra weight on us. We need to be okay with that. Except for Taylor, she'll never have extra weight on her. But the rest of us will have a little extra, and it's okay. My concern is how open are those blood vessels? And what we have learned is there are certain things, certain foods, certain nutrients that have an impact on our internal physiology, which in my mind is far more important of a focus. But everything for most people is, how do I look when I look in the mirror? Or I stand on the scales. That's even worse. Or take my BMI, which is even worse. So what I want to take you through is some principles that I have found over the 30 years that seem to be stable principles of nutrition, of the food part. And I want to explore some of these in detail and hopefully help us answer some of these questions about lifelong nutritional habits, not diets, because they don't work. So, does anyone have any initial questions before we dive into this?
What was the name of the author again?
Of which one?
Of that book you were mentioning, Everything You Want to Know About.
David Rubin, Dr. David Rubin. He also wrote the book, Everything You Want to Know About Sex, but we're afraid to ask. That was 30 years ago. I don't think it's on the market now. There is one book that I do recommend. I don't recommend any diets. I don't recommend... Actually, there's 2 books that I do recommend that I'll give you right off the bat as good resources for nutritional information. And the first one of these is called Intuitive Eating, and I forgot the author. Has anyone here read that one? Who's the author of that? Do you remember? There's 2 of them. Somebody. But the title is Intuitive Eating. It's a terrifically popular book, but it's a tremendously nice book. It actually, I wish I would have written that book because it goes really nicely with our focus on mindfulness later on, because it puts eating in a different focus where food is about enjoying it, not about what can I or can't I have. It's about enjoying it mindfully and letting your body tell you what your needs are. That's a smarter way. The other book that I highly recommend is called The Culprit and the Cure by Steve Aldana, A-L-D-A-N-A, Aldana or Aldana. The Culprit, has anyone seen that book in here?
I've read it.
You've read it?
The Culprit, that's it?
The Culprit and the Cure, or The Culprit or the, I think it's and the Cure, yeah. Steve Aldana, A-L-D-A-N-A. He actually is a Utah boy, worked for the CDC, and his focus is quite epidemiological. In other words, he looks at the science of what's happening with, to us as a culture, the statistics of who's gaining weight, who's not, and what's the primary cause of that from a nutritional point of view. You'll notice the second page that is this food pyramid. You've seen all the different pyramids out there, and I've never really liked too many until I saw this one, and this is the one that he uses, which is based on, I think, sounder principles than any I've seen before. But you'll notice at the bottom is daily exercise and weight control as the most important thing. Even the nutrition book says this is the most important thing, is daily exercise. And then he goes through and breaks out the kind of the things that we want to focus on, and I'll let you just refer to that when you want to. But I want to go into detail a little bit more. Are there any questions about anything else before we dive into this really interesting stuff today? Any of you have any driving questions you've always wondered about nutrition but never got it answered? Do you, Taylor?
I was just wondering, a lot of people, it seems like, are eating coconut, well, like coconut oil, but it's like solid, and then they'll cook with it, and it's supposed to be like really good for you. Is it really good for you? Because I always thought that was like saturated fat, and it's solid at room temperature.
At room temperature. Yeah, I've heard recent rumblings about coconut oil, and see, my thinking about most things as we go through this, one of the things that I'm fairly comfortable saying is if it's as close to its natural state as you can get it, it's probably not so bad. When you cook coconut oil, I don't know about what happens when you cook any kind of oil, it kind of denatures it, but any type of food that you eat, as close to how Mother Nature or God or whoever was in charge of making the food that's on the planet, the closer it is to its natural state, the more likely it is that it is a healthy nutrient for us. In general, there's dozens of exceptions, but in general, that's a pretty safe, coconut. Let's see, what's another similar fat that's like coconut? Avocados would be a similar. It's mostly fat, and it's also solid, mostly at room temperature, and it's a little more saturated. It's a combination, but nothing wrong with eating a good avocado from time to time. Did you have a question, or are you stretching?
Well, I have a comment on that. I feel like it's a good fat. It's taken in smaller doses. But
Say that again.
I know runners, it is taken in smaller doses, but I know like runners, they take it in small doses to get rid of like lactic acid.
The coconut?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, do they?
Yeah. Like
So it helps.
Especially distance runners, it helps with lactic acid if you drink it in small doses.
Really?
Tablespoons.
Okay. I wonder how that
I
is.
wonder how like avocados are good for you, like a good fat, but you don't want to eat too much of it.
Yeah. You wouldn't have it plastered on your potatoes every day.
From what I've read, and I'm definitely no expert on coconut oil, but from what I've read, what originally turned people off to it was when they tested it, it was after being cooked on high heat. From what I've read, if it's cooked at a very low heat, it's still good for you. Before you cook it, if you're sauteing something and it starts to smoke, it changes the structure.
Like olive oil.
Yeah.
Terrific before it's cooked, horrible once it is, kind of thing. But it starts out saturated as opposed to olive oil doesn't. Well, let's play with that a little bit. So everything that we eat, mostly, no, just about everything that we eat, with a few exceptions, is made up of 6 basic nutrients, right? We got 6 basic nutrients that combined make up just about everything. What did you eat for breakfast? Did you have breakfast today? What did you have? Okay, is that it? Just what kind? Boiled, baked, fried, poached? What kind of?
They were fried.
Fried eggs, okay. Did anyone have a bowl of cereal? Okay.
Oatmeal, I did.
Oatmeal that had cereal. What did you have?
I had
Oh,
Apple Jacks.
you didn't have your spinach mix?
No, not sure.
Apple Jacks.
It was the easiest thing. Hey, it does say that they have more whole grains now.
Yeah.
It's like once in 6 months. I have
Whatever.
full cereal, so today was the day.
What are the 6? What are the 6 nutrients? There's 2 sides to this. 3 are what we call caloric, right? So fats, proteins, and carbohydrate, right? And the other 3 are non-caloric. Come on, nutrition folks. Vitamins, minerals, and water. Vitamins, minerals, and water. Just about everything we eat is some combination of those 6 things. So if you drink a cup of milk today, for example, you had milk in your cereal, which of these nutrients is that milk made of? Yeah?
It's got protein and fat.
There's definitely protein in there. There's some fat. Is there any carbohydrates in milk?
Yes.
Certainly, yeah. Vitamins, minerals, probably, definitely water, because you're drinking it. Okay? So that's an example. And everything we eat, so let's use an example. Let's use a glass of milk as our example. And don't laugh, I'm not an artist. Here's a glass of milk. Okay? And okay, first of all, let me say at the outset, I am not one who thinks we should be counting calories. I'm not concerned about, well, I am concerned about how many calories we eat, but I don't think we have to get too worried about, am I eating 1,600? Why does the HCG diet work? 500 calories a day. That's why it works. If you went off the stupid stuff, the place with your hormones, and just ate 500 calories a day, you would have the same results. You would just be even more sick. I mean, because you can't handle that.
I worked at a clinic, and as soon as they started introducing the HCG, I left. I just couldn't do that. But people really become so obsessive with it. It's crazy. It like messes up their mind, and people would go on it and then get off and totally, just like you said, gain so much weight back and become so obsessed with it that was the only thing that could ever work. And they would just keep coming back, and it was crazy. It was like a sickness.
And okay, here's a sideline note for any diet that is designed to be very limiting in calories. Fasting works. But what happens as soon as you stop fasting? Yeah, you do. You actually gain more because you've been telling yourself, by not eating any calories, you've been telling yourself, or your body thinks, okay, if I ever get any in here, I'm going to store it because there might be a famine again, and so I've got to hang on to whatever I do eat. So you eat nothing for 3 or 4 days or 500 calories, or for a month, or however long those HCG, 6 weeks that they go on those series. Yeah. So you're eating nothing, and absolutely you're going to lose, because the calorie kind of burn it up, eat it in balance is going to be weighing toward you're going to be eating the excess calories. Your body needs to have energy from somewhere. If it's not from your food, it'll be from the places where your food is stored, right? So, as soon as, so you famine for 6 weeks, essentially that's what's happening, and your body the whole time is going, man, as soon as I get anything in here, it's staying. I'm not going to burn, I'm going to slow down my metabolism because I don't want to eat my muscles. I don't want to eat my tissues because I need those. So I got to store it. And it's back on. That protein, those protein diets that people were on, same exact thing many years ago. They don't do it quite so much, but it was amazing how you see people who lose tremendous amounts of weight because the calories they're eating is pretty low, and they're not eating fats or sugars. It's just, but as soon as they start leaving that,
I didn't prescribe to a diet at the time, but I had a change of job, career path, I guess you could say. And I was really nervous, really totally out of the box of what I was used to doing. I really wanted to impress, and I really wanted to learn, and I could not eat.
oh, because you were stressed.
Yeah,
It was
for about 5 months. And then I was no longer what they were looking for, and my skill set didn't match their needs. And so I was unemployed. And
Were you okay with that?
no,
Oh, so
no.
some people are.
No, in the end I was, because I wasn't, it worked out. But at that time, then my appetite started to gain itself.
Kick back in.
And I gained weight just from, so it wasn't a diet, it was just my nerves.
Right.
And I couldn't eat, and I lost a bunch of weight, and my friends were kind of freaked out. And I thought, these
Kind of feels good to fit into my high school clothes again.
Right, and then I, like I said, unemployed. The stress kind of relieved, that sort of stress relieved, and I started to eat normal, and I gained weight because my body was hanging on to.
Pretty quickly, huh?
Yeah, it was bizarre.
Yeah.
I couldn't, what am I doing differently?
Yeah.
And it took, it takes a while to lose it. I mean, it didn't take very long to drop, but it took a while to lose the extra pounds that my body was.
Because your body's going, man, if she ever does this again, I don't want to go through that same famine because really it doesn't want to eat itself. So it's going to store every chance it gets. Makes perfect sense. Thanks for sharing that. Now, so I'm not a big person on calorie counting. We'll play with one idea in just a second that I think is fascinating to do with sugar. But I am very concerned about what we eat, what it is that, what types of nutrients we are putting into our mouths on a consistent basis. Now, I'll never be one who will say, well, don't ever have anything Hostess, or don't ever have this or that. That's, the intuitive eating says that's not how we eat. But if every single day we're going for the, Apple Jacks? If every single day we're going for food that is with outside of some specific parameters that I want to show to you, then we know that it's not good for the body. It's not good for the blood vessels. It's not good for fat storage. It's not good for quite a few things. So the first one, talking about fat, what is the recommendation? Let's say we have a glass of milk, and it's made up of carbohydrates, fats, and protein, right? Now, what is the recommendation by National Institutes of Health or CDC or whoever on what percentage of our meals, what percentage of our day's calories should be in the form of fat calories? Do you remember? 30%. In other words, 30% of no more than 30% of everything we eat should be fat calories. Does that make sense for everyone? Do we understand what I mean by that? So, So let's play with one. Now, why 30? Do you know? Did they tell you this in your nutrition classes? Why they got to 30? It's a funny answer. The reason is because they didn't think Americans could get to 20, which is the better, the more healthy percentage. No, I'm not kidding.
I think I was going to say 20.
20 is better. And Dean Ornish, who runs the only place in the country who was able to see reversal in blockages of blood vessels without drugs, he used these things that we're playing with right here. He says it's more like 12 is the amount of fat that we should be taking. He's a little more strict and worried only about, or primarily with heart disease. I mean, his focus is heart disease. If you have heart problems, we do know that fat calories has a tendency to lead toward increased blockages in blood vessels. Okay? So, here we have a glass of milk. Let's say this milk is whole milk. So what percentage of this glass of milk is fat calories? Do you know? Does everyone know what I mean when I say what percentage? Like if you eat a bag of potato chips and you look at the ingredients, basically what are the ingredients, the main ingredients in a bag of potato chips? Potatoes, oil, and salt. Pretty much that's the ingredients. There might be a few other trace things, but essentially that. Now, if it were just potatoes, does a potato have carbohydrates? I mean, is it made up of carbohydrates? Yes. Fats?
Just the potato?
Just the potato. Really? I don't think there's any fat in a potato. There's barely any protein. It's mostly carbs. The outside is more fiber than the inside, but it pretty much is carbs. So milk is a combination of all these, a little more spread out amongst them. Whole milk, what is the percentage of fat calories in a glass of whole milk? Yeah, it's about 54% fat calories. Okay, now if we're following our guidelines, is that a good call? On a consistent basis? Probably not. Do you see what I'm trying to walk us through here? We have to ask ourselves every time we eat something, or at least have in our mind a good idea, what percentage of this that I'm eating is fat calories? And if it's much over 30%, we may want to think about limiting it, not making that a consistent nutrient that we're eating. Does that make sense? Now, how do you tell? Really quickly, if you're looking at a nutrient label, a food label, how do you tell the percentage of fat calories? The percentage. Come on, nutrition dudes. How do you tell the percentage of fat calories? Okay, so that gives you the total number of total number of calories. So you divide, so like if we took our potato chips, for example, really, and I have seen where, and let's say a bag of potato chips is 100 calories, we'll just say. Little tiny bag. And it says there are 7 grams, we'll just say for the sake of this, let's say that there are 7 grams of fat calories in this bag.
How many servings? Just
in one serving.
Okay.
So based on, what's your name again? Tara. So based on her equation, what's the percentage of fat calories in that? So you take, it's 7 grams times 9 equals 63 calories divided into 100. So what's the percentage of fat calories? 63%. Good call. And that is typical for potato chips, that they are that high.
I was listening on the radio the other day and it said that on a discount that the average about the each potato chip is at least 2 to 3 pounds.
Really? If you included that along with everything else that you ate, that alone adds 2 to 3 pounds? Interesting. No surprises. I mean, our body doesn't like to have a lot of fat. Now, let's break that down a little bit. So we've got fats, and there are basically 4 different kinds that we'll find showing up in food, 4 different forms of fat. There's 2 pretty healthy types of fat. I remember when I was first learning this, there were no healthy kinds. They just said, don't eat fat. No fat, because that's why we're fat, because we're eating fat. Well, that's not accurate anymore, right? We absolutely need fats. So what are the 2, nutrition dudes, what are the 2 healthy kinds? Poly and mono unsaturated fats. Okay? Those are the good kind. Those are the kind. Now, how do you tell if a fat is an unsaturated fat? At room temperature, it's liquid. Those are the good kind. Those are the kind that our body needs, loves, and we don't want to really limit those. If you look on the pyramid on the next page, see where those show up? They're clear down there at the bottom. Plant oils, including olive, canola, soy, corn, sunflower, peanut, and other vegetable oils. These are the good ones that we really don't want to limit. I mean, obviously we don't want to suck olives all day or whatever, but we don't also want to avoid those for fear that that's making me fat.
So the 30 or the 20% with fat, is that saying that you only want 20% like saturated fats, or is that good fats?
No, as a matter of fact, good question. The saturated, let's go into the saturated, and to quickly answer your question, that should be no more than 10%.
Okay, so it's the 30% or the 20% is the poly and the mono.
Mostly you want to have this, limit this, like it says on the page, limit these kinds of fats. Now, so what are the two other kinds? Saturated and trans fatty acids. Now, let me just say a couple things. So this is the bad kind and this is the really bad kind. So when you're shopping for food, what does this, how does this show up in the ingredients list? It says partially hydrogenated or hydrogenated. Anything that says hydrogenated, avoid at all costs or at almost all costs. Tara.
I just want to say something about the trans fatty acids. They can say 0 grams trans fatty acids until up to a certain point, as long as it has less than 1 gram. So it can still have some in it.
Still has some in it, yep.
But they'll say 0 trans
Right.
fat on the
That's right.
front of the package.
So you have to read the ingredients. Don't get swept up in, I mean, the number part is very deceiving because they say, well, it's only 30% or 20%. And you go, oh, that must be a good thing. That's 20% of your daily needs for a 2,000 or 2,500 calorie diet or per day. So so look at the nutrients. Look at what's in it. And if it says hydrogenated anything those are the kind that you want to avoid. Was there anything hydrogenated in that?
How are you?
Yeah.
Yeah, there wasn't actually.
Nothing in there?
Five or one bar.
So you didn't see any hydrogenated oil, so it's probably a better call. Now, so let's play with some foods, some common foods. So, butter or margarine? If you're going to have a choice between one or the other, I would never, if you ever want an interesting research or discovery or whatever you call it when you're learning about stuff, go online and say, how margarine is your search term, how margarine is made. I guarantee you will never eat it again. Yeah, it's absolutely the most disgusting thing that ends up being a food in our kitchen. Try that for fun, just how margarine's made, and watch what happens. The biggest one that is the most important oil, kind of on the positive side, and our nutrition people are really focusing on this, is the fish oils. That those are really, we should be having fish oil every day. Some kind of, and Rod did a really interesting study. There were people who were worried that, oh, there's mercury in some of these. There's not. You know, in the capsules, they're afraid that maybe there's trace elements of mercury. Yeah. And he did a really thorough study, and he didn't find any problems with any of the locally found fish oil supplements. But that's one of the oils that our bodies, yeah, that's a good call. That's an absolutely beneficial call that we should be having on a regular basis. Okay, are there any? I don't want to go into fats any more than that, because I think it's not as important as some of the other things.
So I've heard a lot about cod liver oil. Is it just any fish oil?
Yeah. Well, there are specific types of fish that apparently are a little bit better, but that's in the same, it's in the same quality ballpark, I think.
So what would be the difference? Like just like the omegas in it would differ because of the fish, or?
Yeah, I don't know for sure.
Okay.
I
mean, generally, if it's fish oil.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those good to haves kind of preventative thing. It's not going to make you a marathon runner, but it's kind of a preventative maintenance thing.
I haven't done a lot of research with fish oil, but I know for a lot of people it's the taste. And so, like, some capsules will claim they have a better, so when you burp or whatever throughout the day, you're not tasting the fish oil. Or if you take a capsule with something else, then you're not going to taste it.
Yeah.
Or if you mix it with something and you just do a liquid, then you won't taste it. Or some people do just pour the liquid on a spoon, and some people gag because of the oil that's going down your throat.
Yeah, I had a prenatal omega-3s in it, and I couldn't take it because it was so gross.
So disgusting,
So,
yeah.
That's a big thing for people when they're taking fish oil through a supplement. And then depending on the company, just like with any other supplement, you want to look into it. But
Yeah.
that's all I've heard on it. So.
And I take it at night so I don't burp up.
Yeah, and some people will take it in the morning, at night. It's a personal preference as far as that goes.
Yeah. Mine doesn't have any taste. I take some every day just about, and I just trust that it's one of those things that when Rod tells me this is something you should do every day, I say, okay, that's one thing I'll do. He says you don't have to go crazy with too many other things, but fish oil is one of those good to haves most every day. And what Rod says.
I did actually hear that if you can taste after, if you're burping it up, it's a poor quality fish oil. So you should use one if it
Maybe so. Who knows? I don't know.
What are the benefits of fish oil? Like, why is it?
Doesn't it decrease LDL?
You know, I'm not sure.
It's not good for your skin.
Yeah, that it is. It's good for your skin. It might have something to play with LDLs.
It also, they say it, my friend's a counselor, and she says that she encourages all of her people she counsels to take it,
Yeah.
because it sharpens your mind.
It's good for your...
Focus.
Okay.
The mind, kind of like DHA and all of that.
Okay.
I have my.
Maybe so.
Because it does have the essential fatty that you need, and a lot of people aren't getting it. My 1020 nutrition, it was in high school, so she wasn't here at Weaver State, but she actually said a lot of people who are trying to lose weight and aren't getting the essential fatty acids and the fats that they need for their body to be functioning at peak performance, if you start taking it, it can actually boost weight loss.
Weight loss.
In some ways, because it is that fat that you need and not the bad fat.
Right.
So for some people who can't, like, are seeing no difference and they tried everything else, if she does that for them, a lot of times they're able to drop those last couple pounds. I mean, it's not like you're going to lose 5 or 10 pounds. It's just those last few that
It assists in metabolism in the right way, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're introducing it like in cardiac patients.
Are they really?
Like my grandpa being an example, but because I think again it decreases the LDL.
Maybe so. Interesting stuff, and my suggestion to you with stuff like that is just go do your homework. There's plenty of good information out there. Don't go to a company website, but go to, you know, a medical or a website that is a nutritionist website to do your homework on that kind of thing, as far as the benefits. Okay. We'll not have time to get into carbohydrates today, so let's try and finish this off on, what's today, Monday? So on Wednesday, we'll try and go through the rest of this list and kind of get in your mind if you have any questions that you've been wondering about over the years or recently, whether it's with nutrition or sports nutrition or performance nutrition, bring it and we'll see kind of what we can learn.
Look on the fats, where you said 20 to 30%, 12%. Is that per meal or just for the entire day?
Both. Yeah. I mean, just consistently make sure that you're not eating 50% or 60% of what goes in your mouth isn't the form of fats, and mostly, for sure, not these kind right here. That's the most important thing. Okay, have a great day, everyone. We'll see you Wednesday.